Herbert. I've got it. Herbert. Let me see. Oh gosh. These are all fancy names, aren't they? The
Yeah.
law firm names. His thing is called Herbert Smith Freehills in London.
Oh, that's a big firm. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very smart guy. Yeah.
Yeah, it must be. Yeah, it's a big firm.
Good.
Did
So
you do
Lavanya and Senthil are all into they're
pull me in.
Oh, hi, Sudiksha.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, I think we pretty much, and Kirtana is there. I think we, and Samyukta. Hi, Samyukta and Kirtana. Hi. I think we've got almost all speakers. Brilliant.
Belated birthday wishes, Sudiksha.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Big 21.
Participant.
Another 5 minutes, Ramesh, or tell me whenever we have to start, we could.
I wanted to see Sudiksha.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah, fine.
Good audio.
Hello, Rahul. Hello, Samyukta.
Hello.
So Stephen, that's Rahul. You know, Rahul, I said, who's the trainee solicitor.
Oh, hi, Rahul.
That's a law. He's the law person.
Hi.
Hi there. I understand you've just started as a trainee solicitor at Herbert Smith at Freehills. Oh,
Yeah.
oh good. Yeah, very, very big, prestigious firm.
Yeah.
I'm at Thompson Solicitors in Manchester. You may have come across them, quite a big firm that
Yeah, it
work
rings
a
a
lot
bell.
for trade union clients.
Okay.
Okay, shall we start then, Ramesh? I think because it's a lot of speakers need to go as well. So I don't know how many people have joined in. Oh, there are 32 participants already. So maybe should we?
Let's start.
Let's start. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see so many of you turn up at 3 o'clock on a Sunday evening. So thanks for that. So just a disclaimer at the start. So this is an event by Manchester Tamil Mandram, but for the sake of the speakers and also the nature of the talk, we are going to keep it all in English. Yeah. So the entire event is going to be run in English. So we did a GCSE workshop a couple of years back, and there was amazing feedback for that. So then we decided to do a bit more, turn up a notch, and do an A-level careers evening. So making a choice at the age of 16 or 17 as to what career you want to take, you know, narrowing down your choices, GCSE subjects from 11 or 12 to 3 or 4 is a massive job. So especially these days, there's so much of options as well. Like those days, I mean, majority of people are here from India, you know, the parents, and we know that either it was medicine or software engineering. Those are the two choices. Very easy to choose. If you like maths, then go for the IT side. If you don't like maths, go for medicine. But that's not the case these days. There's so much of options. So I'm hoping by the end of this event, you guys, I don't know whether students, there's a mix of students and parents, I guess, you will have an idea as to what are the choices out there and what kind of career options you've got. So we have wonderful speakers here today. When I say wonderful, they are all multi-talented, highly achieving, skilled students here. Most of them are university students. A couple of them, though, have finished uni and just started at the new career. And also we have a guest speaker here, Mr. Stephen Jewell, who is a lawyer, and Ramesh would introduce him closer to the time of his talk. So before we start, some ground rules. I'm sure everybody's muted yourself. That's great. Any comments or questions for the speakers, please start typing it in the chat box. We will pick it up, like the core team members would pick it up. And we could ask them at the end of their talk if they have to go. I know a couple of them needed to go.
No, video photo off.
Why?
Put son pechkel.
I'll put in. I don't want to.
No,
somebody
put
hasn't
son
muted
pechkel.
really.
Why?
Whoever is that, fine. They've just shown me how not to mute. So, and also we will pick it up at the end as a question and answer session if there is time. Yeah. So let's start without much time, wasting much time. So I'm going to start with a language. So I think I've known Nanda for say 5 to 6 years now. So I think a lot of us, like there are children who like language like English or be it Latin, French, Spanish at school, but then they're really not sure. I mean, do I have to take it as a degree? What would my mom or dad say? I mean, especially, I'm sorry to say this stereotype, but Indian parents, they were like, what? You want to do a language? We need to break that. So Nanda, I've known for the last 5 to 6 years. His mom is a very, very close friend of mine. He's a third year student studying English at St. Andrews University. He was a star student at Altrincham Grammar, yeah, for boys. And I think the entire English department just loved him and they want him back, don't they, Nanda? He's a very, very passionate writer, painter, and a modeler, that's what you told me, his own words. Basically, Nanda is a very creative person. You could look at the way he's got his whole image, look at his beard, and he just looks like a creative guy. His work has appeared in university journals. He has been featured as an exemplar technical assistant and student director in many plays he works on. And also at the moment, currently, I think he's working on a collaborative project to document the legacy of racial unrest in America and a personal internship working with chief staff members of Penguin House. Wow, so many accolades to you. So without wasting much time, the stage is yours, Nanda.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muller. Yes, I think you did a pretty good job of introducing me. But just to go over it again, I'm Nanda. I'm a third year studying English literature at the University of St. Andrews. And just to begin, I know we talked about sort of stereotypes that a lot of people especially from the Southeast Asian and Indian backgrounds have regarding going into the arts field of degrees. My A levels were maths, further maths, physics, economics, and English. So the vast majority of the things I was studying up until the end of my school career were things that probably didn't quite fit underneath the remit of the arts. But I took the opportunity to do English because I felt that was what really spoke to me. Out of all the various subjects that informed how I chose my eventual degree, it was English that really presented itself as one that I felt personally most connected to. And surprisingly enough, what a lot of arts degrees want nowadays is a degree of technical skill. One of the most desired secondary degrees for an English degree is mathematics. So I think that's one thing for you to also consider when it comes to picking your A-level options if you've not done that yet, or if you are doing them, sort of thinking that just because you're doing a more scientific degree, it doesn't necessarily preclude you from doing an artistic degree at university. But I think I'll just sort of cover why English and how it interacts with what I do at university. I know it was mentioned that I do a lot of theatre work. That's something I've been doing since I was about 14 or 15. And usually on the technical side of things, I've been a sound and lighting engineer, sort of amateurly working in Altrincham and in the Royal Exchange for a couple of opportunities there. And I've had the chance now at university to combine not only my love of English, but my love of the technical. And I think more than anything, moving into the university space and developing the person, you start to realize that the most important thing you can do is taking your interests outside of your chosen subject and combining them with the passions that you feel for the subject you're studying. So I've had the opportunity to write plays. One of the projects I've been working on that sadly had to be cancelled up until recently, but we're hoping it'll go forward this year, is I'm working on producing a play for the Edinburgh Fringe with a couple of close friends, and we've been greenlit and we've got a space, and hopefully it was going to be happening last year, but obviously COVID threw that one threw a spanner in the works there. But I think again, what I'm trying to say is that there's a strong confluence between what opportunities you have available to you at university and what subject you're doing. So for me personally, I was combining English with the technical. But alongside that, I've had the opportunity to do research work. The project that Dr. Van alluded to was, there's a meeting I'm going to go pretty soon actually. We're essentially documenting and recollecting and ensuring that a database of various monuments and statues across America that are linked to the Confederate War, and especially as more and more are being removed. And I think that speaks to English literature as a subject being more and more relevant in our modern day society. I think there's a conception that English is you're often concerned with the past. You're reading older texts, you're reading old books, and you're making the same rehashed arguments you made year over year over year. And you might have felt that in your courses at GCSE or A level. You tend to repeat what other people said in the past. But I'd like it to be known that nowadays English is such a vibrant and interesting topic because it combines so many disciplines into one. The ability to produce groundbreaking work on how we understand race relations across the world, I think, is a really important part of what the subject can offer. I'm just sort of moving swiftly on. Job prospects are obviously something that's very pertinent to consider, and especially as I'm coming to the end of my degree, something I've been thinking about a lot. The traditional sort of progression for a lot of English students, stereotypically, is that of teaching. And it's true that a lot of English graduates often do go into either sort of nursery, primary school, secondary school teaching, especially specializing in English, but obviously in primary school broadening out. But that's not to say it's the only sort of job that's available to an English graduate. There's law conversions available, which I'm sure Rahul will be talking more about later on. There's specializing in lecturing, so taking a specialist degree and taking it to a higher level. Publishing, which is something I'll be touching on in the last end of my little talk here. Writing, journalism, film and TV, theatre. I think the writing aspect is quite interesting because the image of a lot of English students going on to become authors probably precludes a lot of interesting other writing that could be done. There's technical writing, which combines which is where you're working with engineering firms, etc., providing the written backdrop to these texts. There's copywriting, there's editorial assistant work. There are a lot of other types of creative writing where if you feel like perhaps you're interested in it and you would like to do it alongside a degree in another subject, there's probably an opportunity for you to put the two together. Like I said before, you'll have there's opportunities for you to meld both the creative writing aspect with the technical aspect of perhaps a scientific field that you're interested in, because the way we communicate is obviously for the written language of English in the majority of scenarios. But I'd just like to touch on one of those jobs that I mentioned briefly, and that was publishing. And that's where I'm currently looking to further my own career ambitions in. And I'm working with the team at Penguin Random House, and specifically the digital rights management. And the digital rights management team and their rights manager will oversee all sort of moving and selling and managing rights of all the books that come into Penguin Random House, the publishing house in England. So we've been talking a lot about how important it is to have a grasp of other languages when it comes to approaching the global workplace. I have a pretty rudimentary grasp of German and a couple of other European languages. So I've sort of self-taught out of interest to read books from that culture. And as I was talking with the rights manager at Penguin Random House, we discussed that so much of international work relies on the strong foundation in languages. I think a lot of students, especially ones in the scientific fields, perhaps neglect that aspect of the job. I think doing night classes or sort of after school classes at university or currently at A levels and really getting a firm handle on conversational vernacular foreign languages is a really, really strong skill to have, especially in a market that's getting, like I said, increasingly global in its nature. I'm a little aware of time and I'm rambling on a little bit. So if anyone has any questions specifically about a couple of these things, I'm happy to take them. But otherwise, I think I'm more than ready to pass on to the next speaker.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nanda. No, you weren't rambling and you kept to time. So thanks for that. I can't see any questions on chat box, but I do have a question for you. How easy or how difficult is it to get the internship you got in Penguin House? Because I know they are big publishers.
Yes, this is a good question. I think this is actually says when we're talking about stereotypes. the internship that I was able to get on was actually specifically aimed at BAME students, so British Asian or minority ethnic students. And it prioritized people who don't have a particularly large presence in the publishing industry. The publishing industry is by and large largely female and largely white in its presentation. And so I think there's a lot of scope for people from other backgrounds to give, because obviously when you're publishing, you're trying to sell something to a larger public than just a certain sect of society. Having as many diverse people as possible is a larger part of what new publishing has to try to do nowadays. So I think for Indian people trying to get into the creative industry now, it's never been a better time. There's so many initiatives that are being set up that help you get a foot into an industry that for so long has often precluded people of an Indian or Asian background.
Thanks for that. Anybody else has got any other questions? Because Nanda in particular has to go after this talk, while others could stay back. No. Okay. Oh, there is a question from Haidia. So I know Haidia is like, I think 16 or 17-year-old. So she's asking, do you continue to analyze texts in university like you would in GCSE for language and structure?
I think the skills you establish at GCSE level really do sort of continue all the way upwards. But the way you approach those texts becomes a lot more nuanced, and also the range of texts you discuss. For example, this term, I'm spending a lot of my degree working on musical lyrics. I'm looking at music journalism. I'm writing about how music's evolved over the course of the last 70 years or so. I'm looking at the lyrical context and sort of the socio-economical context of those pieces. And that's still analyzing language and structure, but it's something that's far more pertinent, I think, far more relevant to what a lot of people probably listen to. You probably listen to a lot more songs than you read books, just by the nature of how easy a song is to consume. So we've been looking at like things like Bob Dylan, early pop punk, etc. But yeah, I think the what you're studying now, GCSE, are the foundations of far more interesting things to come. But yeah, that would be my answer.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. I hope that answered your question, Haidia. So yeah, knowing Nanda, I know he is exceptionally good in maths as well. As he said, he did maths, further maths, and he did physics. I know physics in A level is not an easy job. It's really hard. But then you still chose to do English because it was your passion. And I think that's something that we all need to learn and, break the stereotypes. And if the kids are interested in some subject, I think you should go for it. And much as your mom wasn't happy initially, I think she's really happy now. So I'm really glad. And thanks, Nanda. I think, well done. Thanks for.
No worries. Thank you, everybody. I'll be disappearing now, but all the best to all those, because I hope everyone else enjoys this meeting. And I hope you get something out of it. So all the best, guys.
Thanks, Nanda. Thank you.
Right.
Bye. So the next speaker here is, next one is on law. So the next speaker is Rahul Prakash. Well, Rahul, I'm sorry, I'm going to embarrass you a little bit now, because I know Rahul from when he was a baby, like I think a few months old. He's a complete academic. He stopped pretty much all his exams throughout his school. He went to Manchester Grammar, and he was the editor of the school's history magazine, if that's right, Rahul. Yeah. He was very passionate about history, so he studied actually history at Durham University, where he was also the president of Durham Union Debating Society. Trust me, no one can win a debate against Rahul. I know that. All of our family friends know that. And hence, he chose to do law following his degree. So he did law conversion, which he's going to tell about in a minute, because it was such a hard course, I believe. And he's currently working as a trainee solicitor at Herbert Smith's Freehills in London. And I hear from Stephen, who's going to speak next, that it's a very, very difficult firm to get into. So well done, Rahul. Apart from this, he's also a very keen badminton player, I'm sure. And you played for your college at Durham. Yeah. So on to you, Rahul.
Thanks, Auntie. So yeah, a lot of what I'm going to say at the start is going to be basically rehashing what Nanda said. I chose to do at A-level, I did history, chemistry, geography, and maths, and obviously geography, maths, and chemistry aren't related to history. And just like Nanda, I chose history because it was my passion. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do as a career, and I think that's especially the stereotype when you're from a South Asian Indian background, that when you get to the age of 16 or 15 or 16, you're already under pressure thinking about what you need to do for a job. And I guess the main message I've got to say is that you don't need to be so worried at an early stage. Just think about what you're interested in. And honestly, if you're passionate about things, it will shine through and you'll be more successful in what you do if you actually are passionate about it. So don't worry too much about careers. Especially if you're in year 10, year 11, doing your GCSEs, pick the A-level subjects that you want to do and enjoy, because from a practical standpoint, that's also, you're more likely to get your A stars and your A's in the subjects you enjoy and you're best at. So yeah, and you can basically start thinking more about careers when you get to when you're a bit older, and you can think about it when you're in year 13 or in uni. Obviously, if you're sure about what you want to do, if you're convinced you want to be a doctor, when you're 15 or 16, that's great. You can just go and do medicine. Or if you're convinced you want to be a lawyer, you can go straight and do law. But the point is, if you're not sure about something, just pick what figure out what and think about what you're interested in, then just go with that. So yeah, when I went to uni, I did history. I guess history was sort of similar to English in the sense it's a lot of reading, lots of essay writing. I'm not going to say it's easy. I did spend quite a few all-nighters. That's probably my own fault, to be honest. Volunteering and doing too much things on the side. And yeah, I was the president of the University Debating Society. There are better debaters than me, as much as Auntie said very kindly said I'm the best debater. She knows there are much better debaters than I was. But yeah, I put a lot of work in. I was the president of the Debating Society. There was a lot of organizing and things like that. And again, that's something I just got into because it was fun to do with friends and things like that. I've met quite a few interesting people through that. For example, I met David Moyes last year on the trip back. I've had Anton de Beck up for dinner. For anyone who watches Strictly. Yeah, and so obviously law, people generally have the impression that it's a very vocational degree. It's a very vocational field. It's sort of like if you're thinking it's like the humanities version of medicine, you do law and then you become a lawyer. But really, the legal industry definitely really has changed in the last 20, 30 years. Most of the big firms tend to recruit 50% law, 50% non-law. And you can apply for a training contract with any degree. There's a stereotype that it's just you have to do law, history, or one of the humanities subjects. That's not true. Science students are in huge demand. Lots of the big firms have specific open days for science students, especially in things like intellectual property. And it's actually, if you do science, because there aren't as many science students applying, you might even have a better shot of becoming a solicitor at a top firm. So,
Rahul, sorry to interrupt. Are you going to screen share or?
Yeah, I'm just reading off the slides. I'll circulate the slides at the end, and then
sure. Okay, fine.
Because essentially, my experience is I had to do a 1-year law conversion course called the Graduate Diploma in Law to convert to law, and then I did the legal practice course, which is sort of like a 1-year professional skills thing. The issue is the regulating authority has changed the system, so none of you unfortunately will have the same path as me. So I'm just going to take a minute just to briefly explain what will actually happen in the future with this. In the future. So basically, they've changed it and replaced, for all students, you have to do something called the Solicitor's Qualifying Exam, which means that it's a 2-stage exam. So you do one on legal knowledge and one on practical skills. It's still basically quicker to do as a law student, but the difference is that you still have to do the same thing, regardless of what degree you did. You still have to go through both stages of the SQE, just a little bit quicker if you're a law student because you've prepared for it in your final year. Just going to finish up by saying a bit about what lawyers do and why law is a great field. Law is interesting and important. Basically, everything you see in the world in terms of development has had laws as a lawyer has had some involvement in. I think Stephen mentioned that he works a lot with trade unions. Obviously, I think it's big in the news that the nurse union is thinking of taking strike action over the pay rises. I'm sure law solicitors will be involved somewhere there, negotiating with the government if it does come to strike action. I've been working on a few things this week. I've just started at my firm. Fortunately, I can't really say much about what I've been working on, but definitely it's something I was thinking about. A few things that'd be quite interesting to people here. In terms of the actual work you do, there's a lot of research, communication analysis, and again, these are a lot of things when you study at uni A lot of transferable skills. It's all about when you're applying for jobs, thinking about what you've done. And honestly, regardless of what degree you do, as long as you work at it and do well at it, there's a lot of transferable skills you can put in your application form. And in terms of the brief outline for people who don't know much about how the legal profession works, there are two types of lawyer in the UK. You get solicitors and barristers. Solicitors basically work outside of the court, advise clients directly. So that's sort of things like me and Stephen would do. And they're employed by law firms. And barristers are ones who specifically advocate in court and then work in chambers and basically go before judges. And you see the stereotype in TV shows of the guys in robes and wigs and that sort of thing. So I think that's everything from me. Does anyone have any questions?
I can't see it on the chat box, but of course, I always have questions. I can ask you one to kick off. But that was a fantastic talk. Thank you, Rahul. And I can see people clapping, but obviously because they're all muted, you can't hear anything. So I don't know whether we want to, I'll ask a couple of questions and then maybe towards the end, we'll have a question and answer Q&A and people can always ask if they need to, yeah. I just want to know, like law degrees, I think, is it a 4 years course or a 5 years?
So a normal law degree is 3 years. So it's 3 years LLB. Yeah, so it's just like any other bachelor's degree, really.
So, right. So my question is, how do you, when you do law conversion, how hard is it going to be to cramp everything into 1 year? It's going to be really hard, right?
You have in the ordinary LLB, you have a lot of electives, so you wouldn't take that during the GDL. The GDL, there's a lot to cover, but the issue is you can be quite selective with how you revise and things like that. I'd say it's an intense course, but it's not a very challenging. You have to get through a lot of work, but it's not very intellectually challenging compared to a law LLB in practice. But the issue is that obviously it's changing now. So I'm not really sure exactly how the new qualification exam is going to work. That's the issue, is that unfortunately they've changing the whole system. So for the next decade, it's going to, for all the students, if anyone here does law, they'll have to do the SQE rather than GDL.
Okay, thanks, Rahul. And I think Ram Mohan has got a couple of questions for you. Do you want to, because there aren't that many questions here, do you want to just shout out, Ram?
Sure. Rahul, congratulations and thank you.
Thank
So
you.
can I ask Rahul, please, you said that you took history because you weren't quite sure what you wanted to do and then you found your way into law. So if somebody was choosing or knew that they wanted to get to law now in the current setup, what would be your suggested A-level subjects in that case?
In terms of applying directly for a law degree?
Correct. Out of your theme.
Honestly, I guess one essay writing subject would help. It would be, I think, in practice, when you get studying law at university, there's a lot of essay writing and problem questions. So you'd want one essay writing a degree. But apart from that, honestly, it can be anything. It's more about how you explain why you're interested in law when you're applying for a degree at university. It's more about, when you're applying for a degree at anything, it's more about thinking about why you're interested in being able to convince, if you go for an interview, why you're interested, or convincing in your personal statement. So I'd say just one essay writing, just out of practice, it'd be easier for you to do a law degree. But otherwise, it's really you can be really flexible with it.
And you seem to have a very well-rounded CV with a lot of things done on the outside. You look to be an extrovert. What about somebody who's more introverted? Do you have to be extroverted, confident on a public stage to get to law, or could you?
I think increasingly law firms that want to recruit from as wide a background as possible. You don't have to be a confident public speaker, and to be honest, I wasn't when I joined university. It's something I sort of learned through the debating society. So no, I wouldn't say you have to be an extroverted person to get on law. There are plenty of fairly quiet and reserved individuals. There's a place for everyone, essentially, and if everyone in a law firm was the same, then A, it'd be less effective, and B, it'd be a less interesting place.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for that, Rahul. Just one last question, and then I think we'll move on to the next speaker, because I'm conscious of the time as well.
Sure.
So Ravi Kumar has asked, Rahul, lots of good tips. Thank you. At what point in your history degree did you decide you want to be a lawyer? What tipped that decision?
So I guess it's a combination of basically work experience. I did a few internships in first year at law firms, and I just enjoyed the work. I found myself not waiting to go home every day, which is quite nice. I enjoyed work experience, and that's why I found out that I wanted to be a lawyer. Then when I went to some networking events in third year, then I enjoyed talking and listening to what they were talking about. And I mean, the firm that I'm at now, that was the nicest of the networking events. So that's sort of the reason why I put a lot of effort into my application for the firm I'm at now. Yeah, that's basically it. It was basically just thinking about work experience and then reading into it. Essentially just when you're at uni, and I probably should have done this earlier in hindsight, it is when you're in second year or even in first year, just go and have a look at the career opportunities out there. The universities do put on a lot of things, and you can find out a lot more by tasting it for yourself than you can actually do just by looking at the internet and reading. It's often important to go and talk to people and find out for yourself.
Thank you. Thanks. That was really, really useful, Rahul. I hope you don't mind staying till the end of the talk, if that's okay. There should be another 45. I think I'm hoping another hour at the most, 45 minutes most likely. So we've got loads of other topics, like we've got maths, investment banking, the big medicine, dentistry, IT, and about gap year. So stay tuned, guys. I feel like somebody on the TV show. TV host. Well, next up I'm going to ask Ramesh, because Stephen is Ramesh's friend and has kindly come as a guest speaker. So on to you, Ramesh.
Yeah, thanks, Malar. Let me introduce Steve. Steve's a lawyer and he's a member of Thomson Solicitors firm based in Manchester. Steve has over 2 decades of experience and he handles clients across England and Wales. He's specialist in cases where there is international element and involvement of foreign jurisdiction. He is a part of the personal injury claims team in Thomson Solicitors, and he also handles cases that involves a psychological injury, including post-traumatic stress disorder, etc. So, Steve, thanks again for your time and thanks for accommodating my request. And over to you. I want to take you through your thoughts and views. Be very helpful, Steve.
Okay, well, thank you for the introduction, Ramesh. As you've explained, my name's Stephen Jewell. I work at Thompson's Solicitors, dealing with people who have had accidents or suffered illness whilst on holiday abroad or working abroad or on cruise ships or on aeroplanes where there's conventions, road traffic accidents that occur abroad. So everything with an international element. The route to which I got there, I started a degree back in 1990 at the University of the West of England in Bristol, which was a 4-year degree in European law and languages, which included a year at a German university in Mannheim. And the reason that was my option is, whilst I wanted to do law, I always loved foreign languages. I love French, German, and Latin, and also English at school. So it gave me an opportunity to combine law with something. So after that 4-year degree, which was tremendous having a year abroad, I did the 1-year postgraduate diploma in legal practice, which Rahul's mentioned. Then I started getting a bit of experience in solicitors' firms working as a so-called paralegal, which is, whilst it's not a qualification, it's doing legal work, often the same as what a trainee solicitor would do, and it gives you some experience. So I did that. Then I got a job with a firm in Crawley near Gatwick called Burstows as a trainee solicitor. And back then I was able to get a whole year knocked off the 2-year training contract period for the relevant experience I'd already got by then. I think now it's 6 months limit, but that was useful. So then I qualified back in 1999 and got a job in Leeds. So I moved from Brighton, where I'm from, which is part of the reason for my lack of foreign languages, to there. So I qualified 21 years ago, which has gone quickly when I think about it. As Rahul explained, you could work for a private firm, as I do and he does, or you could work in-house as a solicitor for a company. So I work for Thompson's, and the job involves some of those transferable skills that have been touched on, advising clients. So for me, it's about the relevant law for personal injury claims, prospects of their cases being successful, what the procedure involved is, how much they might recover if it's successful, and the timescale, which is obviously they always were keen to know about. Similarly, doing research, because it's complex, involves areas of international law and cross-border elements. drafting documents is a big part of the job. Drafting court documents, drafting long witness statements, drafting instructions to barristers, letters, advocacy. That might be involving court hearings, but also advocacy sometimes of trying to negotiate settlements, using your skills and planning. How am I going to reach the end result of hopefully agreeing a good settlement of the case? But the advocacy is my favorite part. I've always enjoyed doing court hearings. It's a bit like public speaking. It will make you nervous beforehand, but if you then do it and it goes well, that's probably one of the most satisfying parts of the job. So, and then negotiations a lot as well, where you're given a bracket within which to settle a case, and you try and get the best result. So with regards to my experience, whilst I now work for claimant firms, acting for claimants, I've also worked for defendant firms. So for claimants, I've worked for large firms where they've got offices around Britain, hundreds of staff, but also small firms where there's only 20 plus staff, because that's how much the firms do vary. I've worked as a team leader for one of them, dealing with claims for people who got ill on holiday, which was good management experience. Also organising training courses, some trials where I had to go to London to the Royal Courts of Justice, the court that always gets shown when there's something on the news of when they're walking out from there, which for a solicitor is always a highlight to go there. The defendant side has been interesting. Did work for a large petrol company where a famous filmmaker had slipped on a forecourt and was claiming millions of pounds that he wouldn't be able to make films because of his knee injury, which was terrific. I've worked for cruise companies where they let you try out the new cruise ships to break them in whenever there's a new ship. For tour operators such as TUI and Thomas Cook, which involve traveling to Torremolinos to investigate an illness outbreak, going to Euro Disney to investigate somebody slipping on an icy path. So the job gives those opportunities for travel, which I've always enjoyed. And you get to enjoy being part of various associations from like-minded lawyers. So I'd say some of the pluses and the highlights is, for me, working with international lawyers in other countries about what the standards are in their countries, maybe where an accident occurred. Particularly that ties in with my liking of foreign languages, the fact I've kept that, and the travel opportunities it presents. I occasionally get to use some of my German and French that I learned when I'm looking at documents. There might be a ski accident in France or something like that. So I said it's a very interesting, as Rahul said, varied job. It's ever changing. The law for my area doesn't stay the same, so you have to go on courses, keep up to date, seminars, webinars. There's a good social side, which I like, of events, networking events, quizzes, drinks evenings. The more challenging parts, it is a very stressful job. It involves working long hours. For me, with litigation, lots of deadlines, which obviously absolutely must be met. Some clients very accommodating, some very demanding. So managing, for me, sometimes the best part of 100 different cases and clients and trying to keep them all happy and moving the cases along. It's a job where it can be hard to switch off from, particularly when you're working from home and you finish working here and walk 10 yards over there after, which is why it's important to have hobbies. For me, it's reading, doing a bit of Pilates, a bit of home exercise, anything which can help you switch off from what is a demanding job. So I think for people, this job I would recommend for people who've got a real interest in becoming a solicitor and working in the law, who've got that intellectual interest, a willingness to work hard, an attention to detail, working as part of a team, which is important, having to fit in when you join somewhere with your colleagues, a commercial awareness of not just knowing the law, but identifying how you can use it to try and get the best results for your client. So I'd say that's an overview of my experience, which I said I do highly recommend a career in the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Stephen. That was really, really insightful. Because for me, as far as I know, law means it's a very glamorous profession. If you've seen Suits on Netflix, that's the kind of people I'm thinking about, wearing the perfect suits. And I don't know whether that is the truth, but is it true though? Is it that glamorous?
Well, I mean, for a start, I love suits, so that's a good example. Harvey, nobody looks smarter
Oh,
than
Harvey.
Harvey in a suit.
Thank you.
Exactly, brilliant show. But there's that part of it. I mean, sometimes when I have a court hearing, that's the only time where I really get smartly dressed up, the suit, the best tie, you go along, and that's the glamour of it. But I mean, for my office, we have to wear suit, trousers, and a shirt, but we don't have to wear a tie, only if we have important meetings. And then the glamorous side is sometimes for certain clients in the past, when I did work for tour operators, you go up to London, you go to these fancy restaurants in London after the courses, the foreign trips. But no, more the day to day is doing the job, working in an office. For me, a quite busy, noisy, open plan office, which why it's been the opposite working at home here, of being so quiet. But yeah, it has its glamorous side, but it doesn't come up on a day-to-day basis.
Thanks for that. I mean, are you having the time to stay back till the end of the program, Stephen? Is it okay for any
Yes, that's
questions?
fine. Yeah, I can do, certainly. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So moving on, before I go to the next speaker, what I would like is, are there a lot of, I'm sure there are a lot of students here. We want questions from students more than, parents. I mean, of course, parents are welcome to ask, but please, students, who are you? I can't see all your faces. Please ask questions. Put that in the chat box. We can pick it up later. Okay, how do I introduce the next speaker? It's awkward. It's hardest of all for me because she is my daughter. So you might want to close your ears for this, EL, because you might not want to hear what I'm going to tell about you. So EL has been again, like I said, for Rahul, she is a total academic right from the start. I'm talking about like kindergarten reception, 11 plus, where she got 423 out of 423 in all those exams, and then A stars through GCSE and A levels. And also she was one of the very few to get 100% in maths and further maths, which I don't think, I think it's very hard to get that. So she was basically synonymous with maths at her school. She went to Whittington Girls, and maths department pretty much cried, I think, when you left EL. So currently she's a third year maths student at Imperial College in London. In school, she was quite a keen linguist as well. I think maths and languages have something together. So she studied French at school, and she carried on to study French alongside a maths degree. At university, EL has led the Women in Maths Society, which encourages and supports women to want to take up maths degrees, because there aren't that many women who take, I think it's very male-dominated subject, I think, at uni. And she's also currently the social events officer of the Imperial Mathematics Society, which has over 1,000 members. So EL is aiming for a career in investment banking, having completed 2 spring weeks last year, and has got an internship lined up this summer with one of the reputed investment bank firms, Morgan Stanley. So she channels her interest in finance as an investment column writer for the university newspaper. So in her spare time, I think she does a lot of things which I don't want to tell here, but she plays netball for her university team. And she's a very, very keen runner as well. So over to you, EL.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen, so I've got a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I'm sure everybody can as well.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, it's just being a bit slow. Oh no, that's good. Sorry. Okay, can you see, is that fine? Yeah, so I think my mom basically gave quite a good introduction about me. Just to reiterate, yeah, I'm a third year maths student at Imperial. I'm on a 4-year degree, so it's my penultimate year this year. So I'm basically just going to talk about what maths is like at university, because it's one of those subjects that's quite different to school maths. I'll talk about why I chose it, give you some tips for the application process, and then I'll move on to careers that you can do with maths, and a bit more about the career that I've chosen, which, as I mentioned, is investment banking. So as to why I chose maths, sort of the same as what Nanda and Rahul said. I just loved it. It was my absolute favorite subject at school. For me, I think of it like a language. It underpins absolutely every other subject, physics, computing, economics, everything. I think that's why I chose it over like engineering, which might be the classic choice for like South Asian people, because like without maths, you wouldn't even have engineering or physics or anything like that. Math is all about thinking and doing. It's not about reading and memorizing, which I love. It's a constant challenge. Every problem or question that you see is unique. And personally, like the feeling that you get when you finally solve a difficult question that you've been working on for ages, that's just amazing. And nothing sort of comes even close to that to me. Yeah. Okay, so I did want to go a little bit into the differences about studying maths between school and university, because it's something that when I was in sixth form, my teachers and then some students I talked to who'd gone on to study maths at university would always say, they'd warn me that it would be very different, but I didn't really believe them. So I'm here to say it's true. It is very different to school. At school, maths is very method based. You learn something like a method, how to differentiate, and then you do like 20 questions on it, the same thing over and over again. And you never really learn about why things are true or why they work. University is really rigorous and it's really proof based. You learn about why every little thing you've learned from age 5 onwards is actually true. I think my most memorable moment in my degree is when we had to learn how to prove that the number 1 was bigger than the number 0 in first year. And that is a very complicated proof, contrary to what you think. So it's little things like that, like probably never even crossed your mind in school. So I think first year is the most difficult due to that transition, because you're almost relearning how you learn a subject, which is always quite tricky, like blows your mind a bit. At university though, there's a huge range of content, stuff that you wouldn't even think like is included in maths at school is covered at university. There's so much choice. So by the time you get to third year, like me, you can become quite specialized. So I'm quite specialized in like statistics and mathematical finance right now. It's also worth noting that at university, maths degree involves a lot of maths. Like you can think that you like maths at school, but bear in mind you're doing other A-level subjects as well. While at university, it's maths all the time. Like if I have any spare time, there's always maths to do, because that's just the amount of maths that I have given to me, like set as work, etc. It involves quite a lot of independent study as well. I think at school, there's a lot of resources out there. You know, every A-level exam board is pretty much the same. You can always ask your teacher, but at university, all the problems are just completely unique. You can't just Google it and you can't just get an answer. I think you have to be prepared for the fact that nothing's going to come to you like very easily. You have to be prepared to really be resilient, because questions can take weeks to solve. Like you need to be prepared for that. I don't want to scare everyone. I think I've made it sound really hard. It is really hard, but it's also really fun, like really rewarding. And I think if you're prepared to work really hard and you enjoy it right now, and you find yourself questioning things beyond the school curriculum and wanting to explore things further, then definitely go for it. Application wise, A-level subjects, obviously you'll need maths, further maths, and some universities require physics, so I just look into that, but not all of them. There's 3 main stages. So there's the personal statement, which isn't that important for maths compared to like medicine, for example, where they put a lot of weight on what you've done. There really isn't much you need to say on it. There's no work experience you need. You just need to convey your passion through extra reading, any maths challenges or competitions that you've done, etc. Then you'll probably have an admissions test. It could be the MAT, STEP, TAMUA, etc. For this, don't really have any other advice apart from just practice loads and loads and loads. Start really early on and keep track of all your mistakes. So what I always had like a document of every sort of little thing that I got wrong, so I could keep looking at it. For maths, like I always say, the way to become a better mathematician, and this applies for a lot of like science or like math-based subject, is to keep doing the subject. The more questions you do, the better you'll become. And then finally, some universities require an interview. I was quite nervous for this, but there's no need to panic. They really just want to see how you think. You're not expected to get to the answer. My tips would be just be really confident with your A-level content, because you don't want to be wasting time during the interview, like remembering a trig identity or something. And when you're practicing, definitely talk aloud. It can just be to yourself when you're answering a question. But if the interviewer, if you don't talk aloud, the interviewer doesn't know what you're thinking. So how are they ever meant to like know what you're doing, if it's right or wrong, etc. Okay, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about the general career options that maths graduates have before moving on to what I've chosen. So maths is a really coveted degree by employers. It's kind of obvious, but graduates have really good logical, numerical, problem-solving skills, resilience, creativity, and nowadays a lot of degrees, or most degrees, have like a coding or programming element. So by the time you finish your degree, you'll know how to program in quite a few basic languages, which is really desired by most employers in most industries. So the main routes after a maths degree are the following few sectors. So finance and investment, so accountancy, actuary, investment banking, trading. Technology, which could be software engineering at major companies like Facebook or Google, or data science, which is slightly more niche. Of course, there's always teaching, research, etc. It's worth bearing in mind that this doesn't have to be in maths. You can always go into physics, computer science, economics, something afterwards for a master's or PhD. People also go into more business style things, consultancy, etc. But honestly, there's so much you could do. Like, you're not limited at all. So as I mentioned, I've decided to go into investment banking. And before I go into this too much, I just wanted to say, like, I think what Rahul was saying before, you don't need to know what you want to do at school. At school, I didn't have a clue really what I wanted to do as a job. I remember my mum was asking me, well, what can you actually do with maths? And I didn't really have an answer, because like a lot of parents, she was just like, well, I swear all you can do is become a teacher. And I didn't really have a great argument for that. And there's nothing wrong with being a teacher. Like, I really did enjoy the idea of teaching, but I didn't even know, like, I just had no idea what I wanted, is what I'm trying to say. So it's only when I got to university in my first year that, after like joining a few societies, like investment societies, finance societies, getting involved with those and going to a lot of networking, insight days, etc., I decided that I sort of wanted to combine my interest in maths and like data, etc., with a more like business sort of client focused job as well. So yeah, I came across investment banking. I did work experience in my first year and I really liked it. I liked how fast paced it was. I'm someone who really hates not being busy. So the idea that it was quite a challenging career, there's great growth opportunities, networking, traveling, etc., that really appealed to me. So I'll just go over a little bit about like the application sort of process, trajectory, etc., because it's quite specific. So how it works is, if you're on a 3-year degree, in your first year, you'll have to do a spring week at an investment bank. So you just start applying quite early on, do a lot of applications, and that's basically a 1 week sort of, I guess it's just basically a 1 week work experience in the Easter holidays of your first year at university, where you just get to, it's like your first sort of step into the financial world. And then investment banks basically treat that spring week as a sort of extended interview week for their summer internship for the next summer, which you do in your second year. So that's sort of the route. You do your spring week, and then hopefully you'd convert that into a summer internship the next year. And then the summer internship is then hopefully converted into a job for after you finish your degree. So that's if you're on a 3-year degree. If you're on a 4-year degree like me, you start just a year later. So spring week in the second year, summer internship in third, and then hopefully a graduate job after your 4th year. It's quite a competitive, it's a really competitive industry. you have to be prepared for quite a lot of rejections. Most people apply to like 50 plus firms and will get maybe 1 or 2 offers max. So you have to be prepared for the failure, basically. My tips wise would be start applying really early, because that really does set you apart from other candidates. So it's worth, I guess, bear in mind, if you think of investment banking as a career that you might want to do, you don't have to do anything in school, but when you get to university, because the application process for your job basically starts in first year with that spring week, be prepared to join societies, keep up to date with financial market knowledge, just general current affairs from day one, and make sure you research all the companies and know all their like application deadlines, etc., etc. So you have it all together for when you start applying. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's quite niche. Like if anyone has any questions specifically about investment banking, etc., feel free to ask me after this or at the end. I think I've spoken for quite a long time, so cool. Yeah, so that's it. Yeah, so you can email me or just ask me questions during this talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Il. Thanks a lot. That was really, really useful. I mean, I think people who've listened to you probably know how passionate you are in your subject, and you are right. I can tell this honestly to people here. I was shocked when I knew that she's going to take maths. I was like, why maths? You've got so many options. What are you going to do with a degree? But I'm so glad you chose to do that. Follow your passion. And now that I'm seeing big bucks in investment banking, I don't mind at all. As long as you get that. So fine.
I have a question for EL.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
EL, so I think COVID has kind of created a lot of volatility, and around the global capital markets, right?
Mm-hmm.
How is investment banking impacted by this COVID thing? I mean, I think global financial services is kind of got impacted. Can you throw some light around what is the impact on IB specifically? Do you have a visibility around it?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much everyone else knows about investment banking, but investment banking is basically divided into 2 main sort of sectors. So you've got investment banking, so the classic division where they deal with, it's all like the people dealing with big companies, sort of merging them, acquisitions, IPOs, etc. And then there's the market side, which I'm going into. So that just deals with like equity markets, bond markets, etc. So with the COVID, yes, there's been a lot of volatility, but volatility doesn't mean, it's not a bad thing for people in the market side. It can mean greater returns, etc., etc. And honestly, like for example, like the equity markets after the initial dip, they like were soaring, and I don't think that's affected like them badly, basically. And for the IBD side, there's actually been a lot more deals. You've seen there's this year, I think last year, the second half had more IPOs than the year before. So it's not like the investment banking sector itself hasn't been negatively impacted by like COVID, I would say.
Okay, so thanks, Yal. So just a couple of questions, but I think I'll take those 2, and then after that, we keep sending questions, guys. We'll do it at the end, yeah? So quickly, could you please outline the structure of A-level maths? That's a question from Haidia. I think she's a GCSE student. I think you would have forgotten A-level maths by now.
No, I was just going to say it's changed now because it's a new specification. Because when I did it, it was modular. But just going off what I've seen with Kavin, I think you do pure maths and then an applied paper which has statistics and mechanics. But I'm honestly not the best person to ask this question. If anyone is in 6th form now doing A-level maths, maybe put something in the chat, because I just don't know what the exam boards are doing this year.
It's changed now, isn't it? Okay. And one last question from Sindhil. Is further maths mandatory for maths degree?
Yeah. It would be really, I don't think there are any universities that would accept you without further maths, and it would be really, really hard if you didn't have it, because I'm not lying when you say everything you've done in A level will be covered in the first day at university, and then that's it. So if you haven't done, you're basically expected to have further maths sort of knowledge, and you're never like, it's just taken as a, you obviously know it. Yeah.
Sure. So there's more questions coming up, but guys, keep putting questions. We'll pick it up at the end. Yeah. because I think before moving on, Sendil, I think one small thing what Eel said, I remember when she joined college was first day of their college at Imperial College. I think one day they didn't they do all the further maths and maths modules you did in A level in 1/2 a day? That's how they condensed it. So that showed her out of the degree it's going to be. So I'm sure you need further maths for that. So I think we've put off a lot of people off maths here successfully. Thank you. Let's move on to the next talk. There are more questions coming. Please keep putting, guys. We'll pick it up at the end, definitely. Yel, are you okay to stay back then? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The next talk is, of course, most interesting of this event. That's medicine. I would say that clearly. So we're going to do it in a two-part thing. So it's me and Sudiksha here. So I'm going to just say why choose medicine as a career, and then Sudiksha would go more into the nitty-gritty details of how you would get into medicine. So let me try my technical skills here. Oh dear. There you go. Doctors aren't good in technology, right? Okay, can you see that, guys? Somebody tell me whether you can see. Yeah. Okay, yeah, Sendil says yes. Fine, okay. The reason I've put career in medicine with a question mark query is because there might be a few people who are contemplating doing medicine as a career, but then there are people who've definitely decided probably, and then some who are being forced by their parents. So after this talk, make up your mind whether medicine is the career for you. Okay, so I did the same talk in Manchester Grammar a couple of years back. I've just tweaked it a little bit. My husband asked me then, when I went for this talk, why on the earth would you want to do this talk and convince people? Because you could hardly convince your own kids. True. You just heard Eel now. Absolutely, I had no choice, no chance of making her do medicine. She was too passionate about maths. And then my son is in A levels now, and he wants to do PPE. It's politics, philosophy, economics. That's what the Tory people do, the cabinet members. And so he was out of medicine too. But well, if few people listen here, and even if I'm able to convert a couple of people into taking this profession, then yeah, I would think of it as a success, right? So before we go into all aspects of medicine, these are the core values of medicine. Okay, so you've got to be an empathetic person. You have to have empathy. Doesn't matter if you're clever, etc., etc. You've got to be empathetic. You should need to care for people, and you would want to help the vulnerable people, improve their lives, save people's lives. Very gratifying job. So this is what you need to remember. That's the basic core value of doing medicine. Let's go for the fun elements now. Look at the variety. That's Premier League. I'm sure people are into football here. I think I've captured most of the football clubs. What it means is medicine has got the variety. I can actually challenge. I don't think any other career has got. So clinical. So yeah, I'm a general practitioner. So you all know your GP. You all have a GP. And then same thing if you do it in the hospital, it would be general medicine and care of elderly. And then you've got anesthetist. You would have been to A&E at some point. People would have had surgery at some point. So surgeons, so there's on, and I can't even fill in this slide or more slides with the amount of specialties. There's so many. The variety is amazing. And that's just, this is a funny slide that medical students did it, if you could see it clearly. So basically, if you like talking like me, you could choose general practice. Yeah, it's great talking to people. If you really don't like talking to people, then choose anesthesia, where you put people to sleep as soon as they come in. Or if you hate people, absolutely you don't want to talk to people, why don't you do forensic medicine or pathology, where you see the person who's dead? I'm just joking. So there's so much, if you look at that, that's a really funny way of looking at it. You have the amount of variety you have. It's mind-blowing. So that's just clinical. So it's not just about patient contact. It's also, if you don't want to do anything clinical, you could always do a lot of non-clinical stuff there, like microbiology, forensic medicine, pathology. And what about teaching? So you could do teaching at various levels, university, hospital for junior doctors, if you're an academic person, and research. I mean, I'm not into research, but there are a lot of people who are into research. And I mean, if it wasn't for research, where would we be at this point with the COVID vaccine? You all know about the successful COVID vaccine program UK has rolled out. So research, of course. If you would like to do something like management, like, if you're a bossy person, you like to be more telling people what to do, organizing things, of course, you can still do it. There's loads of jobs out there in the hospital, NHS, as a management consultant or a senior executive. It's all the more better if you do medicine and come, because you actually know what you're dealing with. Sudiksha might talk about this later on, but during your medicine, you have a year called intercalating year, where you could choose any non-medical specialty you want. Right. So I think Stephen mentioned about this in his law talk. As with any other career, teamwork is extremely important, and I can't emphasize more on communication skills. So you need to communicate like with any other career, but as a doctor, you really need to communicate with your patient. You need to get across your point, listen to them, and hear what they say. Every university in the UK completely focuses on communication skills, particularly Manchester. So yes, if you haven't developed your communication skills yet, doesn't matter, there's plenty of time, you could still develop. Well, this is the most interesting slide of my presentation. I know there are a lot of careers which give job guarantee, but I could say this, without a doubt, medicine has got the best job guarantee ever. Okay, so that is the longest road in, I think, somewhere in California. So what I'm trying to say, it's a linear path. Okay, once you get into the wagon of medicine as a medical student, you are there. You just don't have, so we saw in the previous talks about investment banking and law, where you need to really be competitive to get into a internship. Doesn't matter. With medicine, once you are a medical student, as long as you keep passing your exams, you will just automatically go into your foundation year. So not one person, unless you don't want to continue medicine, would be without a job. You will be just carried through. That's what it means. You don't have to. So once you get in, you'll be carried through. Well, we always see this, don't we? We need more staff, more doctors, more nurses. Absolutely, we need people, guys. So there is no chance. I mean, all robotics and things in the future, but that's going to take decades and decades. Yeah. So we still need doctors. So obviously, there's no way that you'll be without a job. And especially at COVID times, we needed more doctors. Doctors are always respected, but obviously more during these times. Now, this is another interesting slide for students here. Okay, so the talks that we had so far, for example, maths, I know maths is brilliant at Imperial, Cambridge, Oxford, and I think Warwick. Those are the top 4 universities for maths. And I know law, Oxford and Durham are really good. And usually they say, investment bankers especially, they do say, if you have a good degree from a good uni, we'll prefer, you guys. Doesn't matter with medicine. Don't pressurize yourself. All you need to do is get into any university. At the end of the day, you are a doctor. You might be doing it, Cambridge, or you might be doing at UCL, or you might be doing at, I don't know, Keele University or Newcastle. Doesn't matter. At this point, I have 2 junior doctors. One is from Newcastle and one is from Cambridge. They both are exactly the same. So UK medicine is pretty much standard. I mean, each uni would differ a little bit, but pretty much what you learn as uni is not exactly, you learn more as you keep practicing. So, don't stress yourself that you have to get into the perfect university. Every university is good enough. At the end of the day, just remember you're a doctor. I think that's the biggest advantage. Working hours, yeah. So that's a myth that doctors are really, really working hard. I mean, we do work hard. But look at me, I take part in most of the events, that is a brilliant work-life balance, I would say, because I think more than, at least in the UK, you've got such flexibility in your job. In the professions we just spoke about, I don't know how easy is it to get like a flexible job or part-time job, but here, majority, I think almost 60 to 70% do part-time. Doctors, they probably work 3 days, 2.5 days, never a full-time. So you've got that kind of a beautiful flexibility with work-life balance here. Oh, please don't. I think any doctors here, they wouldn't agree to me. It's not that money is, raining down. No, that's wrong. I'll be lying if I say that. But what I'm saying is money is okay. It's good. Okay. If you're a doctor, you probably might not be earning as much as maybe a very entrepreneur or an investment banker or a top shot lawyer, but you do have good money. So the good thing in medicine is everybody gets the basic, you probably would get a certain amount, and doctors in the top 5%, I think, or 3% in the country, top earners. So yes, you will have a basic minimum. You will never go below that number. I don't want to say that number, but you would be having a comfortable life. Like you could have a good house, good holidays, etc., etc. So money isn't too bad at all. Global value. Now, I don't know whether Stephen might correct me after the talk, but I think that if you do law in Scotland, you can't convert it into law in England. That's not the case in for medicine, like I did in India. Came here, no problems. Yes, needed to learn some communication skills, but other than that, you just come through. You might have to do a few entrance exams in a few countries, like we had to do when we came to England. If you had to go to America, you have to. But once you clear that, it's exactly the same. How many hearts do we all have across the world? It's the same, isn't it? Number of bones is going to be the same. So medicine is basically the same any part of the world. And UK degree, medical degree has extremely, it's very sought after. So a lot of our graduates go to Australia, New Zealand, and Canada for better lifestyle. Middle East, particularly, they pay you loads and loads, and it's tax-free as well. So yeah, it's got a major global value. Okay, that's just to say how cool are we. That's one of my favorite shows, Grey's Anatomy, and that's George Clooney from ER. If anybody's old enough, I can see Steven smile. And this is something I really liked during this COVID pandemic. People might be seeing Marvel movies, but as you say, see doctors and nurses and other healthcare professionals were the real heroes during this time. And the thing is, what I'm trying to say is it's a very respected profession, going back from years till now. When people know I'm a doctor, they do respect my profession. And we all know about clap for carers. Of course, we want more than clapping. We want not just a 1% pay rise, but that doesn't matter. It was still nice to get clapped. Okay, so I am a general practitioner. Basically, I was a hospital specialist. I was a gynecologist, and I changed into a GP, family situation for kids and everything. Initially, I thought, oh God, because I was doing surgery, to convert into general practice, I thought it might be boring, but not at all. Amazing variety of cases in a single day. So morning, first patient might be somebody with a breast lump, breast cancer, going on to somebody who would come in with chest pain, thinking it is something else, but it might be a heart attack, to somebody with a severe mental health problem, so I can never get bored in a day. It's such an amazing variety. And also you're a family practitioner. The whole family you treat, I know the grandmother, grandfather, the son, the daughter, etc., etc. It's great. And when I worked in A&E, what I didn't like is the lack of continuity. But we have this amazing continuity of care in being a GP. And I have so my days, like it's not just, so I do 3 days, 3.5 days clinical work. And then I do half a day in teaching. Like I have medical student, I have junior doctors. I have 3 junior doctors at the moment and 2 medical students currently. And then I do a lot of work in clinical commissioning group. And I also work I'm the lead for COVID vaccination at the moment. So I do those hours too. So it's just amazing variety. So not a moment will be boring for me. Hours are definitely better as a GP for me. And as I said, it's a multiple role. So I'm a doctor, I'm an employer, I have my own practice, I have a number of employees. I can be the business manager, I am my own accountant, I teach students, mentor them. So it's a lot of independent work as a GP, and I've got more control. But it's not, I've said all the nice things because I want a lot of people to apply for medicine here. But it is a long course. I've got to say I've put all of them in one slide because I'm not going to dwell on them. It is a long course. So it's a 6 years course for MBBS. And then you've got to do 2 years as foundation year. And then you choose your specialty. If you're doing surgery or whatever specialty is 7 years from then. So you can see it is a long course and it's hard work. You don't have to be extreme. It's good. It was a myth in India. They used to say you have to be extremely clever. You have to be clever, but it's also about hard work and a willingness to learn throughout, like with any other profession, like, Stephen said for law, any profession, but it's equally the same. You've got to keep up to what's happening. But there's more increasing medical legal issues as well at the moment, a lot of complaints and increasing patient demands, which we've been seeing more and more recently, which is causing burnout for a lot of doctors. So yeah, all this is there, but what matters at the end of the day is your passion. I'm extremely passionate about my career, and that's why every single day I look forward to going to work. And if you have that passion, no matter what, you should be doing this wonderful profession. Forget what your parents say. Forget if your parents are forcing you and you're not having passion about it, don't do it. But if you are passionate, go for it. Good luck and thank you. Let me stop sharing. Okay, guys. So I've done my bit. So there are a few questions coming up, but that's fine. I think mine was just more like introduction. I've been doctor for years now. So, but it's more important to hear from our budding young medical student, Sudiksha. I need to give you an introduction, Sudiksha. So give me 1 minute. So this, I don't know, I know everybody from being a baby, I think. I met Sudiksha when she was 4 months or 3 months old, I'm sure. Sudiksha is almost like my second daughter, I have to say. After Yale, she's like my second daughter. And I watched her grow into this amazing, confident medic, which is such a joy. Sudiksha is currently a third year medical student at Leicester University. In addition to being successful in her medicine application, which itself, it's not an easy task, she also won an award for her EPQ at school. She went to Altrincham Girls, which led her to get involved in research at medical school and has gone on to present at national conferences. Well done, Sudiksha. So throughout her degree, Sudiksha has held different society committee positions. And this year she co-founded, and you've been the president or co-president, isn't it, of Medical Education Society. And you've also gone to co-found the Culture and Arts Division of the British Indian Medical Association. It's called BIMA, right? And you even asked me to join it, which is, thank you. Apart from all these accolades, Sudhi is I know people who know Sudiksha here would know that she's such a sweet person, always full of smiles, ready to help, very hardworking. She is what I would say a perfect combination for being a good doctor. Sudiksha, over to you.
Thank you. That was really sweet. I'm just going to share my screen. Give me 1 second. Ooh, that's not the right one. I think, can everyone see that? Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, so hi, yeah, thank you for the introduction. So yeah, I'm Sudiksha, third year medic at the University of Leicester. So I'll be talking to you more about applying for medicine and life as a medical student. So why did I choose to study medicine? So I think there was a mixture of things. I think one of the biggest things that aided my decision was doing work experience, where I was actually able to shadow different healthcare professionals and just understand what it's like to be a doctor, the pros and cons of the profession, as mentioned before. And most importantly, I was able to see the positive impact that they were having on the lives of patients and their families as well. And it also allowed me to kind of see the qualities that a doctor possesses and assess my suitability for the career. And I think one of the main things is it's such a rewarding career path where you're able to help and touch so many people's lives. So that was one of my main attractions. And at school as well, I really enjoyed human biology. It was, and throughout medicine, I've been able to learn more about how the human body works and things that can go wrong. And in addition to this, it's a constantly developing field, the COVID pandemic being a perfect example. And you're always engaged, you're always on your feet, you're always learning and adapting to the new environment, which I really, really enjoyed. And as mentioned, in addition to this, there's a plethora of opportunities to contribute to medical research, not just as a doctor, but even as a medical student as well. And and it's not just about treating patients. There are so many other career pathways that are accessible through medicine. So things like teaching, leadership, and management positions as well. So those were my reasons for choosing medicine, but everyone has their own personal reasons, and that's absolutely fine as well. So one of the biggest parts of the application is the personal statement. So that's where you're discussing your insights into the career, as well as trying to demonstrate your suitability for the profession. So most of what I wrote about revolved around work experience and my voluntary work in a charity shop and care home, mostly focusing on my reflections. And then I also kind of discussed my extracurricular activities as well. So things like gold DOV, dance, playing the piano, and drama, whilst linking that back to why that would make me a good doctor and the skills that they gave me to succeed in the profession. When it comes to writing it, it is really challenging, but my main advice is to use the online resources available to you. So things like the Medic portal, to think about the things that you should be including. Try and make sure that your personal statement is unique to you, and get feedback from as many people as possible. For example, things like people like school teachers. And don't put off writing it, because generally the earlier that you start, the better. And there we go. So moving on to preparing for the UCAT and the BMAT. So for those of you who don't know, there are 2 entrance exams you have to write in order to, get into medical school, and they're part of the application process. So one of the exams is the UCAT. So it recently changed name. It used to be called UK CAT, but it's called UCAT now. And my advice is to use resources to first come up with a technique for each of the sections. I think there's 5 sections altogether. And then once you have that technique, just keep practicing. Just practice, and make sure you start preparation early. And that will give you a good amount of time to prepare. So then in terms of resources I would recommend, so the UCAT website itself has so many tips. There's question banks there, and there's also practice tests for you to work through. The UK CAT book, so it still has the old name, but it's still relevant. It still has all the relevant questions you need. And also Medify, which is an online paid question bank, which has, again, loads of practice questions. And it also mimics the platform that you'll be using, as it isn't a written exam, it's something that's done on a computer. And then the other exam is the BMAT. So for this, it's more like a scientific exam. So you need to have prior science knowledge, which is like GCSE level. But some, different exam boards cover different things. So I would say to use the online CGP revision guide that's on the BMAT website. It's free to access, and use that to help revise the biology, chemistry, and physics content that you need to know. And again, practice is the main thing here, and make sure you give yourself plenty of time for that. And resources I would recommend are the BMAT website, where you can find that CGP guide, and there's also loads and loads of past papers there. And also the BMAT book, which I put the pictures of both the books on the screen as well, just so you know what I'm talking about. And then preparing for interviews. So I think my advice when it comes to this is just practice again as much as you can with friends, family, anybody you can get your hands on, really. Make sure you keep up to date with the news, especially any developments or advancements in the medical world. Do your research about the medical school, the course, and the city or the town you might actually be living in as well. Make sure you learn and understand how the NHS works, and read up on current public health campaigns. So things like the COVID public health campaigns would be really relevant at the moment. And try to practice loads of different types of questions. So, use the information given to you by the medical school to help guide your preparation. For example, if it's an MMI format, then, practice those role play scenarios, for example. The resources I would recommend are the Medic portal. So there's loads of different articles there to help you prepare for interviews, so about ethics, the NHS. And there's also a question bank there that's available for free. BBC News, just to keep up to date with everything. And also Public Health England website, which is where you can find information about different public health campaigns you could be asked about at interview. Yeah. And then I just thought I would just quickly kind of put in like what life is like as a medical student. So in the first 2 years, in the preclinical years, this is kind of my typical timetable. So I'd have half a day of teaching. So that would be lectures and group work, where we'd work through cases and questions as a group. We'd also have self-study activities, but I would kind of put those in around my extracurricular activities that I would have. And then this is something that looks more like my current timetable as a clinical year medical student on my GP rotation. So I really like it, actually. It's a really a wide range of things that I get to do. So it's kind of a mix of online tutorials, as well as, face-to-face sessions in the GP surgery. So I get to work with different healthcare professionals, so not just doctors, but also nurses and physicians associates. And even though there is less time, as mentioned, it's really important to have a work-life balance in medicine. And that's why I do try and still keep up to date with all my extracurricular activities and fit them in around everything I'm doing. But yeah, and then that's everything. Thank you for listening. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Suriksha. That was really, really useful. I'm so proud to see you talk like this. I'm sure there are quite a few questions, and I have a feeling for medicine you might have more questions, because I think there's lots more to prepare in a personal statement or application process in medicine than anything else. So let's keep the questions to the end. Is that okay for you to hang on? Yeah. Another half an hour or so. Yeah. I just want to comment that I know medical students probably have the best fun time as well, isn't it? At uni, I think they do a lot of clubbing than others. I know that. Not saying you are doing it, but yes. Okay, so going on to the next speaker, I think we've got to rush. We've got 3 more speakers. So let's go to dentistry, because that's the allied subject after medicine. So So Samyukta Ganesh is our next speaker. So for once I can say, I don't know Samyukta from when she was a baby. I know her dad, though. He was my medical school buddy. Was a good friend of mine, and we've continued to keep in touch still. She's a second-year student at Sheffield doing dentistry, and you live in Harrogate, Samyukta, and I heard you were quite a star student at your school. And I think weren't you the first dental applicant from your sixth form who's actually successful in getting into a dental course at uni? Well done. She's also a very keen netball player and hockey player, and you do play for Harrogate. Yeah. So over to you, Samyukta.
Hi. So yeah, I'm a second year dental student at Sheffield. So I mean, Sadiksha was like really good. She's a third year student, so she's done a lot for medicine. I can't say much about clinics and stuff because my first year of heavy clinics would have been this year, but because of Corona, we've done a lot of work on plastic, so I can't really about seeing patients. So I chose dentistry not because from a young age I was really interested in that kind of field. I really knew nothing about it. Both my parents are doctors, so I kind of assumed I'd be doing medicine too. I did work experience. I was lucky to get work experience at the hospital and then also with my dentist. And I found dentistry to be much more interesting to me. I think having grown up with doctors for parents, I was a lot more familiar and kind of used to all that kind of talk. So seeing something new was quite exciting. And I was really lucky because I was invited back for another round of work experience during my A-level year. So I could kind of be I could see how it was for a long time. And like GPs as well, there's a lot of continuation between a patient and the dentist. There's a big relationship. You see your patients when they're ill, you just kind of see them when they need a checkup, and you get to build up a relationship like that. And that was something I was really interested in. I didn't really have a lot of help getting in because no one from my school had applied before, and my teachers didn't really know what to say to me. My parents didn't really know how to help me out either because they went to university in India. So there's that for a lot of us, I think. Our parents don't know as much as other, British parents do about getting into uni here. But I got a lot of help from my dentist and their colleagues as well. I took biology, chemistry, and maths for A-level. You're required to take chemistry to get into dentistry, but all your other subjects can be whatever you'd like them to be. I picked them because I was interested in them, but I knew I didn't want to do university. I don't know. I wanted to do something that affected other people pretty immediately. Biology, chemistry, and maths would require a lot of research, which I wasn't very good at. I think getting into university, a lot of people make it seem like it's almost impossible. I remember feeling like I would never be the one to get into university. I thought it's too much to do. I just can't do it. But if you break it down, the main thing universities want to see from any student for any subject is that you're interested in it. And for things like medicine and dentistry, you don't do a lot of those kind of aspects in normal school. You have to go out of your way to go do work experience and do volunteering and read articles to show your interest. You can't just say, oh, I was good at this subject, therefore I'm interested in it. So I did volunteering at hospital in a district ward, and I helped out at QMON, which is like a maths tuition center. And all you do is you take those skills and you use your personal statement to link them into getting into dentistry. So speaking to children, by teaching them maths, you're developing your communication skills, and you write that in your personal statement, and things like that really help. As far as preparation goes to getting in, we had a society in my sixth form for medics and dentists, and I was the only dentist. And it was a lot of interview prep, like using different books and kind of just talking to each other as if we were the interviewer and then the interviewee. UK CAT practice is pretty intense and has been covered. Just practice is all I can say for that. And I think I was lucky I got interview practice with dentists as well. That really helped because you got a dentist perspective. You can't just ramble in your interview. You have to be pretty point and explain yourself concisely. And you develop confidence that way, just a lot of practice. That, like, it's tricky, but if you really want it, you'll be able to get it. It's not impossible at all. It's completely doable. And I really enjoy it here. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amyukta. Thank you. That was quite concise, but you told everything that we need to know about dentistry. Thanks for that. Is it okay if we keep any questions towards? I think we're almost coming towards the end. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Amyukta. So next on is our IT sector, which is pretty big. I think Ramesh, you said I can introduce because Keertana is the next speaker, but it was Ramesh who actually suggested Keertana, and actually I know Keertana as well. So Keertana Ganesh is a graduate cyber security specialist who has been working at IBM as a part of the cloud and cognitive business unit since she graduated from the University of Sheffield with the degree in software engineering. Now, I didn't understand half those things. They all sounded Latin to me, but I'm sure she will explain soon. So during her career, she has worked with clients in the financial sector and the healthcare sector, working on projects involving data visualizations, anti-malware upgrades, and encryption. She's been involved in a variety of outreach programs, and she actually encourages more young women to take up engineering and technical degrees, which is really important. And also, she talks a lot about cyber safety, which is very, very important for us, the current climate. I think that's it. And she's going to talk, I'm sure. I've heard from her mom that she was brilliant at school too, Ketan. I know you didn't say that, but your mom has told me that. And also, by the way, she's a very keen baker. You might see her in the next Great British Bake Off. And she's just perfected a Black Forest cake during this lockdown. Yeah, over to you, Keertana.
Let me just share my screen. So good afternoon, everybody. So thank you for the introduction. I'm Keertana Ganesh, and I'll be talking to you about the road to technology. So I started off by studying software engineering at the University of Sheffield, and I'll sort of go through my journey and about technology. But yeah, I just want to say, as I'm going through the presentation, anyone who's happy to interrupt me, sort of to take on questions, I'm happy to answer them. So here are some really important areas and interesting areas in the technology sector. So to start off with, I'll highlight a few of them. So AI. So AI is sort of poised to be the most influential technology of this century. And believe it or not, most of you probably use it on a daily basis. So when you say stuff like, hey Siri or okay Google, this is what you're using. And we've also had some instances of disease mapping, which is really helpful, especially during the COVID times, to sort of map diseases in different areas. And this is all done by artificial intelligence as well. But there's another area, so machine learning. So machine learning actually falls under artificial intelligence as well. And that's basically how computers sort of learn to do specific tasks. So for example, I know most of you probably use Spotify or some type of music recommendation system. And what happens when you use Spotify is you're sort of training the Spotify system to automatically learn and to predict new songs that matches your taste of music. So this is all done through machine learning. Blockchain, I know a lot of you probably use, might potentially be buying Bitcoin, but that's sort of the new buzzword in 2021. And that falls under blockchain. And then, so I've got a question for you all. So anybody know the difference between augmented reality and virtual reality?
Ramesh, you're not allowed to answer.
I was about to say that.
Well, okay, so the difference is, so augmented reality is basically where you've got an overlay of a natural environment. So for instance, IKEA recently launched an app, and what you can do is when you're trying to purchase some furniture for your living room, for instance, what you can do is just take a picture, put an overlay of your phone on the app and point it to the room, and you can order different sofas, so you can try out different furniture in your room. And that's what augmented reality is, sort of placing something on top of each other. And then you've also got virtual reality. So virtual reality is entirely computer generated. So that's based on your video games that you're playing, Pokemon Go, which was really massive a couple of years ago. And that's what virtual reality is. So cybersecurity is also another area, and that's sort of my expertise, and I'll come on to it. But that's where it's stuff like scammers, cryptojacking, using social engineering, and we'll talk about that soon. Right, so how did I get here? So this is my roadmap. Obviously, there are lots of different routes into the technology sector, but this is how I came into it. So going from sort of A level, so I think GCSEs overall, most people tend to do sort of triple science, maths and any subjects. But then starting from A levels, a maths and a science is required. So that's what they normally require at university level. And additionally, you can do a couple more subjects as well. So I personally, for my A levels, I did maths, I did chemistry, biology, and for my AS, I did 2 AS subjects. So I did physics and I also did computer science. And I think these days, computer science are actually offered at GCSE level as well. So it's really fantastic that they've started to offer it at such a young age, because when I did it, it wasn't really an option to take. And I would really encourage students to take computer science as well as the GCSE, because it really gives you a good footing. So I think, as one of the speakers earlier said, programming is in a lot of degrees. So having that background knowledge of programming will help you regardless of what career you're going to go into. And then after I did my A levels, I was looking around for university options. So I went to quite a few universities because I wasn't too sure where I wanted to end up. And I think choosing your university really depends on your preference. So it depends on your degree, firstly. And then it will also depend if you want to go to sort of a campus university or a city university, because they've got quite different lifestyles. So personally for me, I chose Sheffield because, one, it was close to home. It was close enough. It was an hour away, but also far enough so I could live out. So that was one of the options. But also engineering is really fantastic at Sheffield. And during the year that I joined, they decided to build a whole new building just for the engineers. And it's called the Diamond. It's a beautiful workspace. And I think I probably spent most of my time there over the 3 years that I was there. And yeah, so my university degree was on software engineering, but I could also do a placement year between that. And I think most degrees actually allow you to either do a placement year or do a year out in a different country to do some sort of studying abroad. And yeah, it was a fantastic opportunity. So what I did was, after going into university, my degree involving a placement year was basically to sort of work in industry to gain some more experience and put what I learned at university into practice. So I secured a placement at the IBM office in Edinburgh. So Scotland was beautiful that whole year. I sort of go traveling, have a look, but the work there was also phenomenal because I got to work with clients like NatWest and got the opportunity to make chatbots and use virtual reality kits like the Oculus Go set, which I think a lot of you are quite familiar with. And then after that, I went back to university to finish my final year. And during my final year, I chose a few modules, and one of them involved a cybersecurity module. So that was something I was really interested in. So I reapplied back to the IBM office into the cybersecurity business unit because IBM has quite a few different areas that you can apply back into. And over the last year and a half, I've been working with quite a few really interesting opportunities, sort of stuff like creating visualization. So that was actually for tracking certain breaches that hackers can sort of hack into your system. And it was for one of the government departments, which was really, really interesting as well. So I'll move on and say that over the last 50 years, technology has actually evolved at an amazingly exponential rate. And I'm sure we all know that because just in our lifetime, we've seen so many of these technologies come about. So some of them that are quite interesting are in 1971, we had the first space station. And then after that was the first video games console. And that was still quite in the early 70s. And then was the first laptop in the early 80s. And then the first 3D printer. And then the first Bluetooth device, which is actually older than before when I was born, which is crazy because we all still use it now. And then in 2007, we had the first touchscreen phone. And then this year, we had the first helicopter on another planet with the Mars rover, which was just absolutely phenomenal. And it just shows that there's such a massive evolution from all the technologies that we've had back then to all the way up till now. So I want to leave you with a message and say that we've got this quote here from Steve Jobs that says, "Stay hungry and stay foolish." So in other words, what it just means is to always be really inquisitive, sort of welcome all these opportunities that come your way. And the foolish part just means to sort of ask lots of questions and try and pursue what you want to pursue. It's not about worrying about what other people want you to do or what society thinks that you should do. It's about what you're passionate about. So yeah, everyone, I just want to say good luck and best wishes to everyone who's applying to universities, doing A-levels this year. And yeah, I think I'll be around as well at the end to sort of take more questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Kirtana. That was a wonderful speech. I was thinking, oh, what am I going to understand? But I kind of, it was very captivating speak. Thank you. And your roadmap was certainly better than Boris's roadmap. So good for you. Yeah, please, I think we're almost towards the end. So hang around and, we'll get more questions. And especially, I think for women to take specialties like what you're doing, I think it's really, really important. So we'll have a chat, definitely. The last but not the least speaker, Sanjani Murugesh. I think a lot of people know your mom here. It's Deepa's daughter. I asked Sanju to say something about herself, and she was like, "Oh, I don't want to, boast about myself, auntie. She's such a nice, humble person. But otherwise, I think actually you make me think of myself because she's really, really chatty and she actually lights up a place wherever she is. So what Sanju is going to talk today is about gap year. So before I go into that, Sanju is a very sporty person. So what impressed me was she lives in Liverpool, but she traveled all the way to Whittington Girls in Manchester just to get a good quality sixth form education, all that way, guys. That is real dedication. And she's also a very keen sports player. She was playing for Northwest of England hockey team, which is an amazing, feat in itself. And you had to stop because you had to move school. That's a shame, but you can always pick it up at uni. So what she's going, it's a different twist to this talk, really. We all spoke about careers, and Sanju is going to do medicine this year. So she's not going to talk about medicine. She's going to talk about gap year. So more and more people are thinking about gap year these days. I think for various reasons now, isn't it? You might not have achieved your grades, or might be your health. You would want to maybe change your career choice and do an additional subject, or you just want to, travel around before starting uni, especially with this COVID pandemic and the complete mess up of our student grades the last year. This is going to be the new norm, I think, for the next few years. So please, Sanju, we'll be really, really grateful to know how you, spent your gap year. Thank you.
Hey, hi, Andy. Thanks for the introduction. So I'm just going to talk about why I took my gap year and how it kind of came about and what I've been doing. So I obviously was one of the people who got kind of screwed over by Boris and his equation. So I wanted to join medicine, and it was 3 A's. Unfortunately, I got AAB. And so I decided to sit my exam and kind of prove to myself that I could do it. So in October, I got a grade in August. In October, I did the exam in chemistry and I was successful and I got an A star. So the reason why I wanted to say that is that I think when I started thinking about taking a gap year, obviously it was kind of handed to me, the situation, but I think I didn't know any other South Asian person or anyone from this like BME background that has taken a gap year. And I think there is this idea and culture that taking a gap year is failure. And my point is that even if you take a gap year, it doesn't make you any dumber, any less intelligent than anyone else. It's just a different path that you're taking. So after I sat my exam, that was kind of my sole focus. I had about a month period where I was kind of at home and I didn't really have anything planned because it was kind of thrown at me. However, the year before, I did actually apply to a tutoring program that in preparation, like if this happens, I'll be quite honest, I don't think I'm that similar to some of maybe like the medical students that you know. I did mess around in school a lot. I can say I wasn't the most studious of people, and I did kind of realize that this was going to happen. So I put measures in place and I applied for a job, but I didn't get a placement as a tutor in a school. So I had that month, and I'll be honest, it kind of took a toll on me. I felt like I didn't have a purpose, I didn't have a meaning, and I think when you're in school, you always have something you're working on. You're, okay, I need to get my GCSEs, A levels, but then when you're taking gap year, it's kind of like, oh my God, you're just sitting at home and you just kind of feel a bit useless. So while I was at home, I was waiting for this placement. On my NAPA are doctors, and they were going home stressed all the time, like, oh, so busy. And I was like, Ma, Pa, you know what? I'm not doing anything. If you need help in the surgery, I worked as a receptionist for 3 years. So if you need help, let me know. You know, free labor. And Indian mum and dad always love one of those. So I told Ma, and they actually then told me at the time that their network, so a PCN is a primary care network, which is a group of GP practices that collaborate together and support each other. They were actually looking for a network administrator for 16 hours. And I was like, you know what, I'll have a shot. I'll apply and I'll see what happens. I applied. I was very lucky to be successful. And it started off as just me taking minutes and just really joining the meetings. It was very administrative, and that was what it was like for, I reckon, maybe 2 weeks. And then after that, the COVID clinics and the vaccination program started rolling, and the work level just started increasing and increasing. And then at one point I was doing something like 70 to 80 hours a week. And it was crazy, but it was it's been, in retrospect now when I look back at it, it's been one of the best experiences. I've helped and participated in setting up 2 COVID clinics, being able to work with different PCNs as a learning disability, looking at the learning disability side of things, cancer, looking at QAF data, just seeing genuinely how the NHS works. Obviously, I'm joining medicine in 2021, but actually understanding the background of what happens has been absolutely amazing. I've also, so that was all setting up, and then I feel like I felt a sense of, I was plateauing, maybe I was kind of standardizing, and I decided to also embark on a HCA journey within primary care. So I started working on my care certificate and enrolled myself in a vaccination program for subcutaneous, intramuscular, and intradermis vaccines and injections. So I completed that, and I'm happy to say I got signed off. Yesterday, I did my first session as a vaccinator at the COVID clinic. So I'll be doing that for the next however many months and just building up my skills on working as a vaccinator as well. And then on top of that, I got my teaching placement, and I work at a school in Liverpool. It's in a disadvantaged background area, and I work as a maths tutor all the way up till A level, and I also work as a geography tutor and a Spanish tutor. So I do that 2 days a week. On top of that, I also teach children with learning disabilities, maths as well, and that I do over the weekends. I just came from that before I joined on. So it's been amazing. On top of that, I wanted to really do something like social awareness, I want to do something charity based. And so I decided to do, actually, I should say, she had started talking about Black minority, ethnic representation, racism, and inequality within the NHS. And I've been supporting her and really joining in on kind of breaking that out. I think there were a lot of incidents that I have seen, which I've always been from very privileged. I've been from a very privileged position that racism has not been something that has stopped me from achieving my goals and my dreams. But when I'm now working in a professional environment with older people, I can actually see the impact that racial inequalities have. So supporting Ma and joining in and really making a breakthrough on the BAME leads and the importance of addressing racial inequalities to our white counterparts has been absolutely amazing, and a lot of work and a lot of my time has been put into that as well. So hopefully I'll continue to grow and develop and build up my skills. And I think my main point that I want everyone to understand is that I had the offer when I was doing that exam in October to actually go to Lincoln and study medicine and join 2020. I decided not to because I'm a bit of a weirdo and was like, I'm not going to let Boris say I can't do it. So I didn't take the offer. But if I had taken that option at that point, it would have been the biggest regret I've ever made. The experiences that I have built up upon now and the kind of certainty in myself that I have is invaluable. And if I had joined 2020, I know for a fact that I would have been like, oh my, like I would have just joined medicine the way I feel like a lot of people join medicine, which is kind of like, okay, well, this is what I'm studying at uni, so it is what it is. But after this year, I feel so enthused. Like I never thought I'd feel like this. And it's just seeing genuinely what happens and the impact you can have on people. I don't think I'm personally one of the most like, I'd probably say like girly in the sense that I'm not the most empathetic. Even though Auntie said you have to be very empathetic, and I completely agree, but I don't think I'm the kind of person who's like, oh my God, you're feeling unwell. Like I'm quite pragmatic in my approach to things, but working in a professional environment allowed me to see that you don't have to be the standard like doctor. You can be any personality, you can be anything, and there are so many opportunities in medicine, and I can't wait to study medicine, and I'm so excited. And for that feeling, I had to take this gap year. There is no chance that if I had joined last year, I would have felt the same way. So I think that within our community, we need more support from parents as well to say, even if you're taking a gap year, it doesn't mean a failure. You can learn so much from many different paths. I mean, I was very lucky to go down the NHS path towards a career path I hopefully will continue to grow into in the future. But on a whole, it's how much you're willing to put into it. I really believe in that. I think you have to be very proactive and you have to put yourself out there. And it's not about how much it's not about the money you make, or it's not about anything like that. It's about it's very cliche, but it's really about finding the things that you enjoy, putting yourself out there and taking as many things that come your way. So yeah, gap year.
Gap year, here we come. Thanks, Sanju. That was really inspiring. I mean, it's obviously you've done so well. Not many of them would fill their gap years like this. And in a way, actually, medicine kind of lends to it. You can do a lot of things around it. But, other specialties, for example, other subjects, it's a bit harder, but there are a lot of options out there. That's what I want to know. And you've delivered that perfectly, because people shouldn't be thinking that gap year is it's nothing to do with failure at all. It's wanting to maybe reinvent yourself or look at other options and just taking a year out. There's nothing wrong with that. After that, it's a mad race, isn't it? So, I mean, you've done so much more than any other first year medical student would have. I hope your parents are paying you for what all you've been doing. Yeah, I hope. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Sanju. That was amazing. So good. So I think there are a few questions and then we'll wrap it up. Let's go from the start. So there's quite a lot of questions for medicine as I anticipated, but let's go into EL. Are you there? Let's start from maths. I don't know. You there, EL? Yeah. Just a couple more questions. I think you've answered a few of them. So Lavanya is asking, you mentioned competitions. Do you mean those like UKMT at school levels?
Yeah, so they have the UKMT challenges, which then can lead on to the Olympiads and things. But I think they're the only competitions there for school.
So I think you've got to get a certain level in UKMT to get into Olympiad, isn't it?
Yeah, but they're not that important. Don't like put pressure on yourself to do one of those and think you have to like get a gold medal in order to do maths. That's not true. Like some of my friends at university like never even did them because our school didn't offer them.
Okay, some schools don't offer them. Okay. And then was further maths, and for investment banking, are you required to specialize further like an MBA before you take a plunge?
No, not in the UK. In America, it's a bit different, I think. So after your undergrad, you have to do an MBA and then start work. But in the UK, you just straight after you do your 3 or 4 year degree, you go straight into work.
Okay, thank you. So Sudiksha, there's a few questions for you. Let's go. So I don't know whether it was specifically for you, but what was your Gold Crest Award on, and how exactly did it help your personal statement?
So Gold Crest, Coursework is basically just a research project that you do in a group. So it's a group thing. So I did it when I was in year 10, I think. And then it was year 11s and year 12s as well. So I was in like a team with them. And it was basically just a research project. It wasn't even related to medicine. It was about like eco-cities, I think. But I think the skills I gained in terms of research, team working, communication, presenting, I think they were all transferable skills that I could apply to medicine. So when I was talking in my personal statement, I would link that back to the skills I had gained and why that's important in medicine. Because, for example, teamwork is really important in medicine because as a doctor, you're not working in isolation, you're working with other healthcare professionals. And so that's how I talked about it in my personal statement.
Okay. And somebody is asking whether I think Zolagu Subramaniam has asked, was the content level in medical school curriculum in the first year huge? Was it a big jump from A levels?
I think it's always going to be a big jump. I think any medical school, it'll always be, there is a big jump, and the content you learn is that there is a lot of content. I have to say, it's difficult at first, but I think once you get into medical school, everybody's in the same boat. No one's experienced medicine before, so I think it's a case of just knowing how you learn, and you kind of develop that over the first semester. And then there's always a jump, between A levels and first year, even between first year and second year, and going into third year, I felt a big jump because it was a clinical year, which is completely different. So I think there are always jumps, but I feel like most people, you adapt to them.
Yeah, good answer. I mean, absolutely. There is a big leap for any uni degree, isn't it? As you said, like, for example, I think at least for medicine, it's content. Sometimes some degrees it's a bit different. Like EL would say it's very abstract maths. You can't just learn up maths. So it really varies. But yeah, absolutely. It'll be a huge leap. And what kind of work experience, both of you could answer this, Sudiksha and Sanju, would you recommend for medical school application? Maybe you want to say one each a little bit, probably.
I mean, I think I can tell you my experience, but obviously with COVID, it might be a bit difficult to get that currently. But the main kind of work experience I did was I did some like hospital work experience. I also did some in the GP as well. But then also
you did with an amazing GP. She did it with me, guys. So that's what I'm saying.
And then, but I think the most valuable work experience was also doing like charity shop and kind of volunteering, because that was more long term, where I was able to, get to know the team and be part of the team as well. And I think that was really valuable when it came to applying for medical school, like both in personal statements, but also in interviews as well. So I'd highly recommend something. It doesn't have to be in a hospital, because right now with COVID, it's so difficult. But even if you can volunteer at a charity shop for an hour a week, that's what I did. Or in a care home, or any kind of care facility where you're caring for people, or even nursery schools, things like that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Sudhi. Sanju, you did something similar, I'm thinking.
Yeah, so I'll be quite honest. I think the medicine process is very, very basic. I think it's quite obvious with what you need to do. And I think a lot of us will be quite lucky that we have a lot of family friends who are doctors or medical students that you should speak to. I think Sudiksha might agree that speaking to someone who has had the experience in the past is really, really useful. So this kind of event is amazing for that. So I actually was a hockey coach for around 5 years. So I've done my degree in that, and similar to Sudiksha, it's really just about basing your experiences and being able to find keywords that universities want, and saying things like communication, leadership. It's quite basic with what you have to say. Just as a matter of fact that a lot of people actually already part of the Tamil Mandram are volunteering in COVID clinics. So I'll be more than happy if Andy wants to share my details, but I help with organising and coordinating medical school volunteers. If they want to get any kind of work experience, working within a COVID clinic is amazing. It's like gold dust, and it's so many transferable skills that look great on your application. So yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah, that's right. So I think work experience is quite difficult to get during this time. I mean, I had so many people lined up in my practice, but I had to turn off everyone, the few from here as well, because we just couldn't have that extra body. But we are starting to take them from summer. But COVID clinic is a really good one. Like Sanju said, vaccination clinic is brilliant. They need people. You could volunteer there. You could do some marshalling, something, basic stuff, and still put it on your CV. So that's really good. Quickly, for dentistry, how many years do you need to study for dentistry from Viji? You're here, Samyukta?
Yeah, sorry. It's a 5-year course. for us. So it's similar to medicine. I think a lot of medicine courses are 6 years actually. So yeah.
Okay. Okay, 5 years, and then you've got to specialize. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's 5 years of school, and then you have 2 years of training. So like foundation training for medics, it's the same. It's dental foundation training, and then you're a general dentist.
Okay. Okay. And somebody's asking, I don't know whether to ask this question. Akila says, how much salary you can expect? I think that's for, I don't know who that is for. I'm thinking it came after Kirtana's talk. So is it after I think for an IT profession, maybe Ramesh could answer that. How much salary you can expect when you get your first job and how much it can go up to?
I mean, I'll reserve the salary topic. We can take it offline to Akila.
Okay, offline. Okay, so it clearly shows that Ramesh is earning quite a lot. He doesn't want to share here. So
the question was for a starting salary, but not for someone who has been with 20 years in IT. So let's be clear.
So yeah, salary, yes, you can take it off separately. True. And Harshita is asking for you, I think, EL, would you say there's a big difference in careers between a pure maths degree and a maths and statistics degree? Good question, I think.
As in, okay, so it doesn't matter what you specialize in, you could still do any of the careers that I said. There's just a big difference between the types of people, I think, who do a pure math degree and a statistics degree. People who like pure maths are probably more likely to go into research, because when you think of pure maths, like it's nothing like pure maths in school. Like it's very like theoretical. Like think of like a classic like maths nerd, like sitting in the room doing maths. That's what pure maths is. So then you could do the same like careers, obviously, because it's like very hard. Like I'm not doing pure maths anymore because it's just like it's not my thing. But I think just for the type of people who like it's different type of maths, and like if you enjoy pure maths, you're less likely to go into sort of like a business like banking, finance type career, but you still could, like nothing's stopping you.
Yeah, I mean, question from me, I think most maths graduates nerds.
Yes, probably.
Okay, thank you for that. And one question for Kirtana, how much theory do you do at uni if you take computer science, or can you choose to do only programming, just theory? That's from Sangeeta.
So it depends per year. So to start off with, in my first year, we did 3 programming modules. So we did Java, we did front-end development, so that's HTML, CSS, and we also did some Python. And then the other 3 modules were theory-based, so artificial intelligence and machine learning. We did a module about, this is really testing my memory now for my first year, I'm trying to think. We did a module on logic and computational logic, so that was a maths module. And then we also did another module on, I think it was a theory of web development. And then in second year, that changes. So you do different languages. So if you want, you can carry on with Java. You can do another, so you get some choice in second year. You can do C++, and you can also do Ruby. So I chose to do Ruby, which is quite useful currently because it's used in a lot of technologies and areas. And theoretical modules as well, once again, the same. So you can do cybersecurity, you can do, there's quite a few theoretical modules you could do. So I think overall, throughout my 3 years at university, I would say about 50% each. So 50% programming and 50% theory based, because once again, the theory is really important, and they'll always base your theory and then you'll do practical stuff on top of it to sort of cement your knowledge about the theory. So yeah, 50% each. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you. I think there's 2 more questions, and I think we probably might wrap up after that unless anybody has questions. So one is for Stephen. Thank you so much for being so patient towards the end. So I think somebody's asked, where does the question gone? How long does it take to finish a law? How long would a degree in law take, from Pranav? I think
that's right. I saw that one. Yes. Now, minimum would be a 3-year law degree, and then you'd have the 1-year postgraduate legal practice course, then 2 years maximum as a training. So you might have 6 years from a degree through to actually qualifying as a solicitor. And again, like I said, you might have some time slightly knocked off for the time that you're a paralegal off the 2-year training contract. Just one thing I wanted to follow on from what you said, Van, is about whilst a career in the law in private practice is, can be a comfortable lifestyle, it doesn't offer the job security that NHS and medicine does. In that I've worked for a number of different firms, so I might get paid a decent amount, but it's a more ruthless environment working for private law firms. So my CV's had a few firms on it, some at a longer time, some shorter, and that is an inherent part of that type of private practice. That my partner's worked for the NHS as a nurse for 20 years, same job, that you're unlikely to get that in my type of job.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for that. And I think Nithya wants to ask a question to you directly. Nithya, are you there? Or is it you, Ram? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I think Nithya's name's on there. Stephen, just wondering, Van makes a very good point about medical universities, and wherever you graduate from in the UK, pretty much the end product is a doc who will be employed almost, as you correctly say as well. Job security is there in the NHS. If you're appointing somebody, are you worried? Are you going to look more favorably at EL because she's from Imperial, and if I'm from Keele as a lawyer, are you going to look down on me?
No, not at all. And I think a bit like Rahul said, people are looking more and more these days for people who've got holistic, interesting background and experience. And I think, you know, when I was in the early 90s looking for, you know, mid 90s, which firms to recruit, I think back then it was more traditional. Early mid 90s, the big law firms would look at which university you went for. Like I went to University of West of England, which was a former polytechnic. It's now become a very good university. It offered law with languages. So no, I don't. And for instance, when I was a team leader at a firm in Didsbury doing holiday law, when CVs came in, I would look in more interesting, quirky experiences, interesting hobbies people have got. And I wasn't dwelling so much on where they went. As long as they got a good result from their degree, it was more about how they portrayed themselves, what interests they had, showing they had a real passion for the subject.
Okay, well, that's useful. Thank you. May I just make one observation, Van, in addition to what you've done? So, medicine, I mean, the one thing to say, I think what all the speakers have underlined is having a need for passion, and which you've said in your last slide as well. And I think it's really important that if you don't have the drive or the desire or the passion, you're going to get disillusioned with medicine, isn't it? And I think after a period of time, because the hours are long, you've spoken about flexibility, but not everybody who gets into medicine will have the ability to go flexible at the very outset, isn't it? More often than not, you will be working full-time for good hours and then come out to be flexible. It does give you an option for sure. So I think that's quite important. And but lovely talks from every one of the kids as well, young adults as well.
Thank you. Just one question from, I think either Sudiksha or Sanju can answer this. I think from Haidia, she seems really keen. I think she's a budding medical student. When do you recommend actually starting to prepare for UCAT and BMAT?
So, personal experience, I spent, I think it was 4 weeks for UCAT, and again, I think it was maybe a bit less, 3 to 4 weeks for BMAT. I would say the main thing is I think some people start preparing months in advance and start like really, really early. But I think with UCAT, it's quite hard to keep going for that long. So I would say just, you know, what I did was I booked mine for like, I think it was like mid-August time. So then that gave me a good 4 weeks. When school finished, I was just focusing on UCAT for 4 weeks, and then I did it after that. And then BMAT was during school time, but I tried to just kind of balance that with everything else going on. So about 3 to 4 weeks, I'd say.
3 to 4 weeks. Similar, Sanju, yeah, must be similar for you as well.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. Well, I did mine 2 weeks for UCAT, which I definitely don't recommend. I think Sudiksha is definitely right. Put the effort in. Also, BMAT, just to bear in mind, is only for certain universities. Normally like Cambridge, Oxford, Imperial, maybe. So it's just depending on the university you actually want to go to, those are the exams you have to sit. So it's not necessarily that you have to do both of them, but UCAT's definitely for the majority.
Sure, thank you. And yeah, I think that's pretty much, I think I had a text as well, EL. I think somebody is asking me, I don't know why it's not in the chat box. EL, that's for you. It's just a simple question. They're saying, is being good at maths at school, do you have to be exceptionally good to a maths degree?
You have to be, I would say, one of the toppers at school. You have to be able to find the A-level maths content like quite easy. But on top of that, it's more just the fact that you have to be really interested in maths. As long as you're like prepared to think about maths all the time and put in the hard work, as long as you have a pretty good grasp of maths at school, you should be fine.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of this session. It's been a long session, but I think it's flown pretty. I mean, to me, it was really interesting to look at all the career choices. And I know, Ram, as you said, I do gloat a bit about my own thing only because I want to sell it and I want more of these young people to get into medicine. So I kind of skim over all the cons there.
No, so Van, I agree. I mean, we've both done medicine for decades, and I would love to have people join the profession. But before I went in, I was taken to our family GP and told it's a long ride. And I'm talking about many decades ago. And that you'll look around and find that, I'm not saying this because Ail is here. I was told that your colleagues will be vice presidents in Citibank when you haven't come out of medical school.
Absolutely. No, that's true. Absolutely.
So it's just to give people while the glamour, when I go into a bar and somebody says, and I say I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon, there's a lot of glamour about it, but it hides a lot of the hours we put away. So I think they have to be prepared for the long haul, which I'm sure they all will be. As long as you're passionate, don't get forced into it because your parents want you to, is the main message.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, Sudiksha, when you're doing probably, I don't know, 5th year, probably Yale is in a job, isn't it? That really annoys me, like he's right, these guys go on so quickly, but doesn't matter. As Ram said, it's, so basically to end it all, what the whole essence of this talk would be any profession, it's law or medicine or a language degree or a maths degree or natural science, history, it doesn't matter, dentistry, anything, you need to want to do it. That's what I've learned. I've learned to step back from being a mom, like a typical South Asian or an Indian mom, and try to sort of put my interest ahead. So I think that would really be good, guys. If something for take home for parents would be step back, let the children choose what they want to. And for children, don't get pressurized. Do what you really want to do. That if at all, if that's what you would take from the session, that's great. And obviously you've had some extra tips about how to prepare and what are the options out there. So hope everyone enjoyed. Any more questions? There are 2 more messages. It's just sort of everybody saying well done. So go enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Bye.
Thank you, Auntie.
Well done.
Bye.
Bye.
Well spoken, everybody.
Thank you.